The rain hammered the cracked pavement of Manchester's back alleys like 1,000 angry fists. Red neon from a broken, open sign bled into the puddles, turning the whole lane the color of fresh blood. That was the first thing Alexander Harrington saw when he stepped out of the black Bentley, the color red everywhere, and in the middle of it, curled against a overflowing skip, a woman in a soaked crimson coat. He had been away for 18 months. Dubai towers, Singapore penthouses, New York boardrooms. He had built an empire worth 9 figures while his wife, the girl he once called "My Little Red Rose," vanished from their mansion without a word. The staff said she left with 1 suitcase. The cameras caught nothing. The police closed the missing person file after 6 weeks. Alexander told himself he didn't care anymore. He lied. But tonight he cared. Tonight he had come home unannounced, drunk on jet lag and regret, wanting to walk the old streets one last time before selling the house and disappearing for good. And the city had answered him with this, his wife, Emily, barefoot, shivering, her once fiery auburn hair now matted and dull, clutching a tiny bundle wrapped in the same red coat that used to make her look like walking sin. Alexander's knees almost gave out. "Em?" His voice cracked like a schoolboy's. She didn't look up. She rocked the bundle and whispered a lullaby he hadn't heard since their wedding dance. He stumbled forward, expensive Italian shoes splashing through filth. When he reached her, he saw the baby, no more than 6 weeks old, with a shock of red hair just like its mother's. The child was blue around the lips from cold. Emily finally lifted her face. The left side was bruised yellow and purple, the kind of mark that doesn't come from a fall. Her green eyes, once bright enough to stop traffic, were hollow. "Alex," she rasped, as if saying his name cost her the last of her strength. Don't take her from me. They said if you found us you'd take her." "Who's they?" His voice came out a growl. She only shook her head and clutched the baby tighter. That was the moment the city learned what Alexander Harrington was truly capable of when someone touched what was his. He scooped them both into his arms, wife, child, and 18 months of guilt, and carried them through the rain to the car. The driver's eyes widened, but Alexander snarled, "Hospital. Now. Best one in the Northwest. Money is not a factor." Emily fought him at first, weak slaps against his chest. "They'll find us. They always find us." "Let them try," he said, and for the first time in a year and a half, he sounded like the man who once ruled boardrooms with a single raised eyebrow. At the private hospital, doctors swarmed. The baby, they named her Rose on the birth certificate Emily clutched like a talisman, had hypothermia and early pneumonia. Emily had 2 cracked ribs, malnutrition, and scars that told stories no one wanted to hear aloud. Alexander stood outside the glass like a wolf guarding its den, coat dripping on Italian marble, daring anyone to tell him he couldn't pay for the entire pediatric wing tonight if it kept his daughter breathing. When the danger passed and mother and child finally slept under warm blankets, Alexander sat in the corridor and did something he hadn't done since he was 12 years old, he cried. Not pretty movie tears. Ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs that made the night nurse pretend she didn't see the richest man in Manchester breaking apart. He made phone calls at 4 a.m. The kind of calls that make powerful men wake up sweating. By sunrise, half the city's underworld was looking for the people who had put his family in that alley. But the truth, when it crawled out of the dark, was worse than anything Alexander had imagined. Emily had never left him willingly. 18 months earlier, 3 days after he flew to Dubai for what was meant to be a 6-week deal, 2 men in balaclavas had broken into the mansion. They showed Emily photos, Alexander in a hotel bar with a woman who looked suspiciously like her from behind. They played a recording of his voice, doctored, saying he was done with the charity case he'd married. They told her he had sold her debts to some very bad people. Debts she didn't even know existed. Emily came from nothing, council estate in Salford, mum gone at 14, dad in prison. Alexander had pulled her out of that life like a fairy tale. She believed every word they said. She believed she was protecting him by disappearing before the debt collectors came for his fortune. They kept her in a flat above a betting shop in Cheetham Hill. Made her clean, cook, worse. When she got pregnant, by one of them, she still didn't know which, they let her keep the baby only because red-haired girls fetch more later. The night she escaped, she'd smashed a vodka bottle over her guard's head and run until her feet bled. Alexander listened to her tell it in pieces over the next week, between feeds and nightmares. Each word carved another piece out of him. He wanted to burn the city down. Instead, he did something far more dangerous. He went legal. And he went public. 3 weeks later, Manchester woke up to front-page headlines. Millionaire's wife found starving in alley with secret baby. Harrington offers £5 million reward, no questions, just names. He held a press conference on the hospital steps, little Rose asleep in a red blanket against his chest, Emily beside him in sunglasses that hid the last of the bruises. "I don't want vengeance in the dark," he told the cameras, voice steady as steel. "I want justice in the light. Anyone who knows who did this, anyone who stood by and did nothing, come forward. £5 million. New lives anywhere in the world. My family will pay for your safety. Because monsters only win when good people stay quiet." The city exploded. Tips flooded in so fast the police had to set up a dedicated unit. 2 detectives who had closed Emily's missing person case, due to lack of evidence, suddenly retired early. A notorious trafficker known as Big Georgie was arrested trying to board a ferry to Belfast with a fake passport. 4 others turned themselves in rather than face what Alexander's money could do. But the real shock came on a grey Tuesday in November. Alexander walked into a packed courtroom carrying Rose in a tiny red coat. He took the stand not as a witness, but as a husband and father. No lawyers spoke for him. He looked the lead defendant in the eye, a man who once shook Alexander's hand at charity galas, and said, "You took 18 months of my daughter's life before she was even born. You took my wife's belief that she was loved. You took my faith in every promise I ever made her. There is no sentence long enough for that. But I'm going to make sure the world never forgets what you are." Then he did the thing that made headlines gyro around the globe. He announced the creation of the Red Rose Foundation. Every penny he made from the upcoming sale of his construction empire, hundreds of millions, would go into a trust. Safe houses, counselors, lawyers, new identities for any woman or child trapped the way Emily had been. Every building, every shelter, every hotline would be marked with a single red rose. "I was a man who could buy anything," he told the courtroom, voice breaking just once. "Turns out the only thing worth buying is a second chance for the people the world forgot. My wife taught me that. My daughter will grow up knowing it." Emily stood up in the gallery, tears running freely now, and added, "We were the lucky ones. Someone came back for us. Most don't get that. So we're going to be the ones who come back for them." The judge had to call recess because half the courtroom was crying. Years later, if you walk through Manchester at night, you'll see doorways marked with a small glowing red rose. Women know it means safety. Children know it means someone will fight for them. And somewhere in a quiet house with red curtains and a garden full of roses, a little girl with wildfire hair asks her daddy why mummy cries whenever she wears red. He kneels down, brushes the hair from her eyes, and says, "Because red is the color of fighting back, love. And your mummy is the bravest woman who ever wore it." If this story moved you, if it reminded you that love can be stronger than money, that coming home can heal what leaving broke, then do me a favor. Hit that like button so this message reaches someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to go back for the ones you love. Subscribe and ring the bell, because every week we tell real stories of redemption, of families rebuilt from ashes. Turn on notifications, you never know whose life you might help save just by sharing. And if you're watching this wearing something red tonight, wear it proud. Someone out there is still fighting. I'll see you in the next one.